contract speculation breakdown articles. Today, we're going to talk about the Falcons contracts. But first, before we do that, I'd like to talk about some breaking news we had over the week. Big monster trade we had. We had Matthew Stafford traded for Jared Goff on January 30th. I'm sure almost all of you heard the news. So what breaks down is Stafford, he makes $27 million per year. He was traded for Jared Goff, $33.5 million per year. He was traded for Goff, a 2021 third, 2022 first, and a 2023 first. So it's obviously a big deal as far as real football goes. I'm kind of on the fence on which side I like more. Those picks are quite valuable, and you can see that the Rams obviously just want to get rid of Goff's contract. So time will tell what happens with both of those players. But the real question is, how does it affect us as dynasty owners? So for Jared Goff, I don't see his outlook changing very much. I already had him as a prime amnesty candidate, and I don't think that changes. He should still be amnestied if he's owned. He's already owned in too many leagues for where he finished last year. I actually expect that his outlook probably will worsen as the Lions are a worse team. Might have to throw a little bit more, but just less weapons, worse team, going to be in less competitive games. I can't see how it's going to help him. I wouldn't be surprised. There's some rumors going around that in a couple of years, Goff is going to be cut by the Lions. So they have a $15.5 million cap hit in 2022 if they cut him, and then that'll be a $0 cap hit in 2023 if they cut him. So it'll be pretty much free to cut him in 23, aside from just losing the player himself. So if he doesn't live up to his price, he'll most likely be cut in 2023, possibly earlier. But like I said, time will tell on that. As far as Stafford goes, he should be just fine. I expect probably a little bit of an uptick in production as he's moving to, as I said, a better team, better weapons. I'd actually be looking to pick him up if he's available. He's available in, 28% of leagues, dynasty owner leagues right now. So 72% ownership. That's too low, especially for his contract, $27 million. It's in the upper range for contracts, but as we're seeing all these big name quarterbacks getting bigger contracts, eventually $27 million is going to be a value. So pick him up if you can. I expect pretty good uptick in production coming into this next season. If you have the cap space and need a QB, I'd be looking for him on your waiver wire. So today we're going to jump into some NFC South talk. We haven't talked about them yet as we just finished the NFC West. So we're moving on to a new division, and we're getting into some contract speculation. So first, we want to talk about how disappointing the Falcons season was last year. Obviously, if you're a Falcons fan, you're not pleased at all. They finished in last place. It's very disappointing, especially given some of their offensive weapons that they had. So, you had Ryan, Julio, Ridley, and Gurley. Gurley might have been a little bit more suspect just because he's getting a little bit older for running back, and obviously the injury worries that he had coming into the team. But the problem actually wasn't so much the offense. They were middle of the pack as far as points scored goes. In fact, 3 teams scored less points than the Falcons and made the playoffs. So it's kind of a little trivia question. See if you can figure that out. I'll have the answer in my article when you read that today as well. But yeah, 3 teams that made the playoffs scored less points than the Falcons. It's kind of surprising, but I'm sure you can get at least one of them. It's pretty easy. The defense was really the issue. So especially close game defense. So the Falcons were involved in 10 one-score games last year. Pretty similar to the Chargers, how they were just abysmal at winning close games. So of those 10 games that the Falcons were in one-score games, they lost 8 of them. So take from what you will. They just can't win close games. They're not clutch, whatever. But the fact is that they were competitive for the majority of their games throughout the season. Yeah, they got blown out. They blew out a few teams as well. So I expect them to be a little more competitive next year. Hopefully they get a good draft. And we'll talk about a little bit of what we expect for them in the draft as well. So we're going to go to some contract speculation. So we're going to speculate about 3 players. I only have 3 notable free agents for the Falcons, and I define notable as any free agent who directly pertains to dynasty owner rosters. So the Falcons have a lot more free agents, especially on defense, that I'm not going to talk about. Simply put, these are players who are rosterable in our format, and there's only 3 that I deemed necessary to talk about. They are Todd Gurley, he's probably the biggest one, Brian Hill, and their kicker, Koo. So I'm not going to talk about Koo very much. Obviously, he's a kicker. He's part of our game. Kickers probably aren't going anywhere for a while, but he's worth mentioning. He was kicker number 2. He finished kicker 2 at the end of the season with a very cheap, almost the cheapest contract you can have. So he's worth talking about. He's going to get a bigger deal. He was one of the more reliable kickers, obviously finishing with as many finish points as he did. He's reliable. But that's where my speculation is going to end. It's even harder to pick where a free agent kicker is going to end up as opposed to picking, what they're going to do on each week. Both of those are hard enough to do, so I'm not going to speculate about it. But I'll let you know, obviously, when he re-signs and what happens or if he goes to a new team. So I want to talk about Todd Gurley and Brian Hill. Both had disappointing seasons. So Gurley finished as RB27 and Hill finished as RB52, like I said. Not great. Gurley wasn't terrible. Middle of the road. I mean, you paid $6 million for him, but you just want a little bit more, especially after how his season started. So he started out really strong. He had 9 touchdowns in his first 9 games. We pretty much knew that his high touchdown percentage wasn't going to last, but he kept putting up, game after game, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown. He wasn't getting the yardage. He wasn't getting the receiving work, but, he was getting 1 touchdown a game, 1.5 touchdowns a game. I mean, for a big stretch of the first half of the season. So he ended those first 9 weeks with 1 touchdown a game, which is, I mean, you can't ask for much more. But after week 9, so the first 9 weeks, after week 9, he posted 27.9 fantasy points total for the rest of the season. Obviously, not what you're looking for. He probably lost a lot of people their leagues if they were counting on him as their RB, especially RB1, but even RB2. I mean, he just you had to start him because running back is so scarce, but you didn't get what you wanted. He was unstartable, really. And obviously, he was suspect last year because it was lingering knee issues. Change of venue was tough to predict what was going to happen. So Gurley's only 26, believe it or not. His knees, seem a lot older than that. I don't expect him to retire in the offseason. I think it's possible, but I think he'll try to get one more contract, whether it's 1 or 2 years. SpotTrack has his calculated market value at 5.5. I think that's pretty close. I think that might be the top number that he would get. I have him for right around $4.5 million per year. So we'll see. If anyone gives you a halfway decent offer for Gurley, I'd take it. In my All-Star Dynasty Owner League, I passed on Robert Woods for Gurley. I'm somewhat regretting it. I'm not very strong at running back, so that's why I kept him. So we'll see where he ends up. It could be a good deal. It could have been a bad deal. We'll see. Brian Hill, he's the second running back I want to talk about. Like Gurley, he's an unrestricted free agent coming into 2021. He's also 26 years old. He actually had a healthy 4.7 yards per carry for his career, which I thought was surprising. For some reason, the perception, maybe in my mind, but it seems like a lot of people's minds, that he's just not very efficient running back. And 4.7, I mean, obviously it's not, Hall of Fame worthy, but it's respectable. Like I said, it's healthy. So I went ahead and I compared all of the carries that each main running back on the Falcons had. And what we find is that Gurley was the most productive. We're talking about fantasy points per carry. So Gurley had 220 carries. Hill had 125. Ito Smith had 81. And the fantasy points are kind of skewed that way as well. Gurley had the most. Hill had the second most. Smith had the third most. But their fantasy points per carry were all right around each other. Gurley had 0.76 fantasy points per carry. Hill had 0.75. And Smith had 0.70. So while one of them wasn't very efficient, they all really weren't. I mean, they're right around the same. And then I went ahead, when you look at my article, you'll see I went ahead and compared each one of them to some backup running backs and see how efficient they were compared to them. I compared them to Jamal Williams, Tony Pollard, Leonard Fournette. And I'm not going to read the numbers off, but you can go and see all 3 of those, Williams, Pollard, and Fournette, were all much more efficient. And they almost outscored every running back. The only one they didn't outscore was Gurley. So it's a long-winded way of saying the Falcons backfield had a poor 2020 showing. I mean, we already knew that. So what can we expect moving forward? I think Gurley will probably not be re-signed. I think they'll let him walk. He was actually named the backup. What was it, about 3/4 of the way through the season. So there were a few games right towards the end of the season where he became the backup, and Hill was the main starter. So we'll see. I think he'll probably be re-signed. I don't see why he wouldn't be. They can get him for around $2 to $3 million per year. Maybe a 2-year, $6 million contract, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. There's little doubt in my mind that the Falcons are going to take a chance on a running back early in the draft. So maybe not the first round, probably not the first round, but second, third, fourth, somewhere around there, they'll eventually take a running back. So time will tell. Let's see who's going to be the starter, but there's really no Falcons running back at this point that can be trusted. Okay, we're going to jump into some contract breakdown. I have 2 players for the contract breakdown today. First one is Hayden Hurst, and I'm not going to, talk about these guys too long. I just want to touch on them a little bit. So Hurst, he was a 2018 first-round pick. He was traded from the Ravens to the Falcons in March of 2020. This trade looked to essentially slide Hurst into the Austin Hooper role. We all remember how dominant Hooper was in 2019. He posted an amazing line for a tight end, not a Travis Kelce line, but still amazing. 75 receptions, 800 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he missed 3 games. A lot of people forget about that. So Hooper was outstanding in 2019. And the reality is that Hurst just couldn't take over that. He was poised to. I mean, he's an athletic tight end. I liked him. I was really targeting him in most of my mock drafts last year, and both my dynasty owner drafts I was targeting him. I wasn't able to get him. But this is how Hurst's season shook out. He makes a little less than $3 million per year. He had 56 receptions, 571 yards, 6 touchdowns, right under 150 fantasy points. So it's okay. It's average. He finished as the tight end 9, I believe. I'll have to double check that. So it's not great. I don't know. Tight end 9 is so tough in a very scarce tight end field. But he didn't kill you. He didn't destroy your team. He was average. So he has 1 year remaining on his rookie contract. After that, he becomes an unrestricted free agent, as he'll have served 4 years in the NFL. 27 years old. I think he's still one of the better values as tight ends go, at least for this year. Under $3 million for an average to possibly above average tight end if everything works out this year. It's not the greatest for his long-term outlook. He's probably going to get paid a little bit more coming into 2022, but I'm not too worried about that right now. I expect he'll probably exceed his production from 2020, but we'll see how much it is. So yeah, I don't know if I'd be trading for him. I don't know if I'd be trading him away. You kind of just stand pat if you have him and know that you have an average tight end that's going to get you probably right around 8-9 points a game. Not great. He has some of those blow-up weeks possibly, but we'll see. So the second player I don't really want to talk about too much is Matt Ryan. And really all I want to say about him is I compared him to Jared Goff. And I actually did that. I actually wrote a lot of this before the Goff trade happened, but a lot of it still stands true. Him and Goff are both in this kind of limbo type contract situation where they're on above average contracts and they're only producing average, maybe even below average numbers, especially for Goff. So Ryan is another amnesty candidate. I suppose you may want to wait and see where he lands because there's rumors that he's going to be moving coming into 2021. I don't know. I mean, his contract's not going to change. He's not going to take less money. That just doesn't happen. So he's already got his contract. Yeah, I don't know. I would amnesty him. Maybe hold on to him if you can, if you don't have any prospects that you're looking to pick up going into this offseason. But hold on to him, see where he lands. But he's going to be a prime amnesty candidate the same way that Goff was. I don't expect him to, be jumping up to where Rodgers and Wilson was for the money. So that's all I want to talk about today. I appreciate everybody watching and reading my articles. You can follow us at Dynasty Owner on Twitter, and then you can follow me also right down here at the bottom at Dynasty Jerk on Twitter. I appreciate the listen, guys and gals, and I hope you all take care and be safe.